Discover the incredible 30-year journey of this grandma's unexpected, life-changing overcoming, in the heart of Maplewood. A quaint Midwestern town where time seemed to stand still, Grandma Ruth watched the world spiral around her. At 65, she was a steelworker turned devoted grandmother, a woman whose strong hands had molded steel just as they had nurtured her family. Now they trembled as she folded the last reminder of her beloved husband, his laughter still echoing in the corners of their small home, carried by the ghostly warmth of his presence. With each passing day since his death, the weight on her shoulders grew heavier. Her daughter Sarah had just lost her job at the factory, and her son Jake was lost to the dark abyss of addiction. Despair clung to them like a thick fog. Ruth often sat by the window, staring at the empty street where children once played and neighbors shared secrets over backyard barbecues. Now it felt as if the laughter had been replaced with hushed whispers of doubt and struggle. Things felt broken like a cherished piece of porcelain. Then one day, a flicker of something deep within her stirred. She remembered the smell of fresh pie wafting through her kitchen, the joy of baking her late husband's cherished recipes. A bakery. Could this dream be a path to heal not only her heart but also her struggling family and community? As she gathered her courage, she shared her dream with the Sunday seniors at the community center. "I want to open a bakery," she announced to skeptical glances and murmurs. Age and experience had taught them caution, and they whispered about how many older ladies tried opening businesses, with hopes dashed like sugar on the cutting board. Yet, Ruth's heart raced with determination. Was it too late to dream? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The early days were rough. Ruth baked, her heart pouring into each crust and filling. The townsfolk initially wondered incautiously, but as the aroma of warm pies filled the air, their worries began to melt away. A community once lost in shadows now gathered around her bakery, sharing laughter and stories over slices of pie topped with fresh whipped cream. It was a revival of spirit. But just as hope blossomed, an ominous threat loomed. An enormous corporation set its sights on the very property where Ruth had dreamt of her bakery. They saw only numbers. Ruth saw memories, love, and community. Fear gripped her as whispers spread. The town trembled under potential loss. Yet just as easily they rallied. Bake-offs were organized, community meetings blossomed. Ruth stood at the center, a beacon of strength, igniting a fire in the hearts of those around her. But beneath the determination, doubt bubbled. Was it too late? Would it be for nothing? And on the brink of battle, a friend revealed their ties with the corporation, leaving Ruth reeling. In this struggle, Ruth discovered what every bakery and the love behind it really meant: a chance to mend the threads of her family and community, to reclaim their dignity. As the final town meeting approached, emotions ran high. Would their fight be in vain? Would the bonds they forged hold strong against the gale of corporate might? With her heart pounding, Ruth knew this was just the beginning. The real test of their resolve awaited. The real question remained: could love rise above despair? The sun dipped low, casting an orange glow that warmed the faces of those gathered in the town hall. Ruth stood at the head of the room, heart racing, a lump lodged in her throat. Faces, some familiar, others blurred by time and trouble, looked back at her with expectation and fear. Would they believe in her vision? Would they stand together in this fight? "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "You know my story, you know my bakery means more than just bread and pies." She inhaled deeply, gathering strength. "It's about us. Our families. Our memories." Maplewood used to be a place where hope thrived. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Ruth saw nods. A few tears glimmered as she continued. "We've been through hard times. Everybody here has faced their own struggles. But let us not forget the strength we have when we come together as a community. We can't let those big business folks take away what we've built together." As she spoke, she noticed Sarah in the back, her daughter's weary eyes filled with doubt and pain. Could her mom really pull this off? Would Ruth's bakery give Sarah the hope she so desperately sought? Jake too lingered in the shadows looking lost. Carl, the neighbor down the street, whispered encouragement to Ruth, and the room filled with an electric energy. Remember last year's bake-off? Ruth smiled, trying to lighten the mood. How we all laughed and Carla burnt her pie, but we still cheered for her. That's what this is about. It's not just the pies. It's the love we spread. Right then and there something shifted in the room. Those skeptical faces began to soften, replaced by determination. A few volunteers stepped forward, offering to help in any way they could. The chatter grew louder, ideas bouncing around like children on a playground. But just as excitement spread, a shadow loomed. Ruth could feel it. It was the corporation lurking with their plans, their negotiations, their cold, calculating decisions. They had money and resources. They had the upper hand. Ruth? It was Larry, the town's councilman. His voice was low, edged with concern. What if they come at us with legal action? They've got lawyers on speed dial. Ruth swallowed hard. Then we fight. We fight with everything we have. Wouldn't we rather be known for giving it our all than letting them roll over us? He nodded, and she could see her words were seeding hope. Others began to volunteer for outreach, for organizing protests, for finding legal advice. Slowly, the room transformed from a place of despair into a hotbed of action. Ruth felt tears prick at her eyes. Could this truly be happening? But in that flicker of hope, uncertainty tightened its grip. Could they do this? Could they actually stand against a corporation? The doubts crept back in, gnawing at her resolve. All right, let us pick a day for our first bake-off fundraiser, Ruth announced with newfound energy, rallying her troops. We need banners, we need to bring the community together, and we need to spread the word. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Ruth caught Sarah's hesitant frown. Her heart sank slightly. She knew her daughter carried burdens heavier than anyone realized. Would Sarah trust her again? As the meeting closed, Ruth lingered behind, scanning the room filled with chatter and hope. Her heart swelled, but her mind was racing. Just then, a gentle voice interrupted her thoughts. It was Carl, who had been there since the bakery first opened. Ruth, do you think we can really pull this off? She met his gaze with conviction. We have no choice. If we don't do this together, we risk losing everything. For us, for the community, for Sarah and Jake, we have to try. As she stepped outside, the cool evening air wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. What lay ahead was uncertain, but unity shimmered like the setting sun. This was the path forward, still fraught with danger, but filled with the promise of healing. And as darkness began to settle in, Ruth knew that the time for hesitation was over. The real fight awaited them, but would they be able to keep the spirit alive against all odds? She took a deep breath and prepared her heart for the battle that lay ahead. A battle not just for a bakery, but for the very soul of Maplewood. Ruth stepped onto the porch of her bakery, the familiar smell of flour and sugar swirling around her like an embrace. She watched as the last rays of sunlight faded, replaced by the purple hues of twilight. The world felt both still and charged, a breath held in anticipation. She thought of the gathering of faces that filled the town hall, some lit with hope, others shadowed by fear. They were ready to fight. But was she? Her heart thudded heavily as she considered the enormity of their challenge. How could they possibly compete with a corporation that had the resources to crush them? She leaned against the wooden railing, letting her thoughts drift to Sarah. Her daughter's eyes, so full of skepticism, haunted her. Mom? The voice startled her back to the moment. It was Sarah standing just inside the doorway. The flickering overhead light cast a soft glow on her features, revealing a mix of emotions: worry, disbelief, maybe even a hint of sadness. Hey, sweetheart, Ruth said, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. What's going on? I wanted to talk. Sarah hesitated, biting her lip. About the meeting. I don't know if we can really do this, you know? I mean, I love the bakery, but Ruth felt a pang in her chest. But what if we fail? The words hung in the air, heavy and uncomfortable. Yeah, Sarah admitted, arms folding tightly across her chest. What if they shut us down for good? Ruth stepped closer, taking her daughter's hands in her own. We can't think that way. We've built something special here. Maplewood isn't just a place. It's people. It's memories. We owe it to ourselves to fight. Tears glistened in Sarah's eyes, and Ruth's heart broke for her daughter. It wasn't just about the bakery anymore. It was about their dreams, their family, and the struggle to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. Ruth wanted to show Sarah that strength lay not in the absence of fear but in the courage to face it wholeheartedly. Just then, a loud knock jolted them both. Larry the councilman stood at the door, looking more serious than ever. "Ruth, sorry to interrupt. You need to see this." He held out a stack of papers, his brow furrowed with concern. "What is it?" Ruth asked, taking the documents. Her fingers trembled as she skimmed through the legal jargon, each line sending a chill down her spine. "They're filing for permits. They're serious about taking over the land." "Mama, what do we do?" Sarah whispered, clenching her fists. "We plan," Ruth replied, her voice solidifying with determination. "We show them that Maplewood won't go down without a fight." "Are you sure?" Sarah asked, uncertainty still clouding her features. Ruth placed her hands on Sarah's shoulders, locking eyes with her. "I won't lie to you, honey. It'll be hard. But we have each other, and together we're stronger than any corporation. Remember the bake-off? That sense of togetherness? This is bigger than just us. It's for everyone in this town." A flicker of hope ignited in Sarah's eyes. "So what's our next step?" "We start with our bake-off fundraiser," Ruth said, her voice picking up excitement. "We need every single person in this town. Flyers, social media, door-knocking, whatever it takes. We can't let them think we're scared. We're going to show them what Maplewood is made of." For the first time since their meeting, a smile broke through Sarah's doubt. "Okay, let us do this." As they began to brainstorm ideas, Ruth felt a surge of energy. This wasn't just a fight for her bakery. It was about reclaiming the heart of their community. But as night deepened around them, the shadows felt heavier, echoing the uncertainty of what tomorrow might bring. Could they truly rally everyone together? Could their love for Maplewood outweigh the relentless threat closing in? "Together we can face anything," Ruth whispered, though deep down she wasn't so sure. With a heavy heart and an even heavier resolve, Ruth turned to her daughter. "Let us make Maplewood proud." As they stepped inside, Ruth wondered if they were ready to confront the clawing darkness that awaited. Was their love enough to shield them against the corporate storm? The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows as Ruth and Sarah moved back inside the bakery. The smell of fresh dough still lingered in the air, creating a bittersweet reminder of what was at stake. Ruth settled at the kitchen table, a wave of inspiration flowing through her. The community she'd always known and cherished had never felt as vital as now. "Okay, first things first," she said, grabbing a notepad. "We need a catchy name for the bake-off. Anything that brings people together and vibes with our cause." Sarah leaned over, thoughtful. "What about baking for our future? It shows we care about more than just the cakes. We're fighting for the town we love." Ruth nodded, jotting it down. "Perfect. And we need stories. The heart of Maplewood is its people. We should get everyone on board to share their own memories related to the bakery and this town. Those stories can turn into flyers, social media posts. We can turn real lives into our strongest weapon." As they brainstormed, laughter slipped into their conversation, lightening the tense atmosphere. Ruth felt a sense of connection, not only with Sarah but with each person who'd walked through the bakery doors. Each shared smile and slice of pie held a memory worth fighting for. Later that evening, Sarah flipped through her phone, searching for contacts. "I'll text Holly and Ben. They've got a way of rallying people. And if we can get the school involved, we could use their space for the event. It'll show we're united." "Yes," Ruth exclaimed, feeling a warmth building in her chest. "It's important for the kids to feel like they're part of something. This isn't just about our bakery. It's about their future too." Just then the bakery door creaked open, and an elderly neighbor, Mrs. Hargrove, shuffled in. "I heard there was a meeting planning for some bake-off," she said, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Count me in for some pies. I'll gather a few more neighbors too." Ruth's heart swelled. "Thank you, Mrs. Hargrove. We need everyone's help. We can't let those big shots take this place away from us," Mrs. Hargrove added, her voice filled with fierce determination. "Maplewood is home." With each word of support that trickled in, Ruth felt their resolve solidifying like the dough they worked with. By the time the last light of day faded to darkness, they drafted a plan, a budding movement fueled by love and communal spirit. But as they sat gathered around the table, excitement coursing through their veins. A sudden chill swept through the room. Ruth's phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with a message from Larry. Just heard from my contacts. The corporation is planning to hold a meeting in town this Friday with the council. They're showing no signs of slowing down. The air felt thick. Sarah's eyes widened. What do we do now? Ruth grabbed Sarah's hand, feeling the spark of fear flicker in her daughter. We prepare. And we show up. We won't let them steamroll over us. We'll take our stories, our community, and stand together. This is just the beginning. The weight of her words sank in. Ruth knew they were entering the most crucial phase of their fight. Was their unity strong enough? As they finished their plans, the night wore on, and doubt mingled with determination. Every small step felt monumental. What they didn't know was the corporation was already strategizing their response. Ironically, their greatest strength could also become their greatest weakness. Ruth sighed, looking at her daughter. Are we ready for what's to come? As the shadows danced on the walls unanswered, the question lingered in the air. Would their love be enough to withstand the storm brewing just beyond the horizon? The next morning brought a fresh wave of uncertainty. Ruth glanced out the window, the early light playing tricks on her mind. A part of her felt drained, but another part surged with a new sense of purpose. She wanted to take a deep breath, to dive into the day, but the pressure loomed heavy. Mom, do you think we should make some flyers today? Sarah asked, her voice breaking the silence. She was busy organizing a pile of colorful paper, decorated with markers and glimmering glitter. Ruth nodded, grateful for Sarah's enthusiasm. Absolutely. And we should plan a little presentation for that meeting on Friday, she added, mentally cataloging everything they needed as they worked. The familiar clinking of pots and pans enveloped them like a warm hug. Baking was healing, a ritual that sparked years of joy. Ruth thought about how many times she de-rolled dough while chatting with her mother, passing on every tip and trick. It was a generational bond earned through flour and sugar. Maybe we can bake some cupcakes as a gesture for the council meeting. Something to sweeten them up, Sarah suggested, raising an eyebrow with a playful grin. Good idea. Ruth laughed. Who could say no to cupcakes? They exchanged light banter as they worked, layering frosting and decorating with sprinkles. A sense of camaraderie filled the air, slowly knitting their worries into something more promising. Suddenly, as Sarah piped frosting onto the cupcakes, the doorbell rang. The sound was unexpected yet familiar. Ruth wiped her hands on a towel and opened the door, surprised to find her old friend Dan standing there, an earnest expression on his face. Hey, I heard about what's going on, Dan said, his brow furrowed with concern. I want in. When do we start rallying everyone? Ruth felt relief flood through her. We need all the voices we can get, she replied, inviting him in. Sarah and I were just talking about making flyers for the bake-off. Dan's face lit up. Great. I have a guy who can help print them for free. He owes me a favor from when we were kids. Their laughter tinkled through the bakery, filling the space with warmth as they started brainstorming ideas. Every little part of the plan began to feel more robust as more people joined in. Josie from the flower shop texted, offering to decorate the event with vibrant blooms, and Mrs. Hargrove's neighbors showed up with care packages of cookies. Days passed in an invigorating blur of activity. The community was rallying together like never before, creating a tapestry of love and support. Ruth found herself lost in afternoons filled with laughter as she rolled dough beside Sarah and helped cut shapes for cookies. Yet, in the quiet moments, her mind drifted back to the looming council meeting and the uncertainty of their future. Then, the night before the meeting, Ruth gathered her friends at the bakery. The room buzzed as they shared stories, laughter, and even tears over the importance of Maplewood. Each person shared a memory tied to the bakery, from birthday parties to quiet afternoons spent with coffee and pastries. Ruth took a deep breath, a lump forming in her throat at the realization. This is more than just our bakery. Her voice quaked with emotion. It's our home, our memories. No corporation can take that away from us. As the room filled with nods and soft murmurs, the warmth of unity blanketed Ruth, wrapping around her like a shield. Yet still doubt crept into her heart. Was their passion enough? As the clock ticked closer to the meeting, fear tangling with hope, she couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was at play. Do you really think they'll listen to us? Sarah's voice carried an undercurrent of worry. Ruth squeezed her daughter's hand. We'll find out tomorrow. The uncertainty hung thick in the air, pregnant with anticipation. Would they be able to make their voices heard against the powerful corporation? Would their love be enough to conquer the storm brewing just beyond the horizon? The day of the meeting dawned bright and clear, but Ruth felt a weight in her chest. She wanted to feel the warmth of the sun, the encouragement of the morning light, but instead shadows of doubt loomed large. She dressed with purpose, her hands shaking slightly as she fastened the buttons on her favorite blouse. It was the same one she wore for important moments, like the day they first opened the bakery. "Mom, do you think we should bring some of the cupcakes?" Sarah called out from the kitchen, her voice laced with anticipation. Ruth paused at the threshold, a smile breaking through her nerves. "Of course. They need to see them and taste them," she replied, her voice steadier than her heart. Together they arranged the cupcakes into a beautiful box, each one a little work of art, adorned with bright sprinkles and swirls of frosting. It felt symbolic, a sweet reminder of why they were fighting for their beloved bakery and their community. When they arrived at the council hall, the atmosphere pulsated with tension. Ruth's heart raced as she joined the wave of familiar faces. People she'd known for years filled the room, but today they were more than just neighbors, they were allies. They were fighters for Maplewood. As the meeting began, Ruth felt the heat rising in the room. She could barely hear the words of the council members over the pounding of her heart. They spoke of numbers and profits, of the need for expansion, but all Ruth could think about was how those numbers represented lives, their lives. "Will anyone speak?" Dan whispered to her, nudging her arm gently. She turned to see a mix of determination and fear etched across his face. Suddenly, that fear galvanized her. Ruth stood up slowly, her heart racing. I have something to say," she stammered, pushing through the quiet that fell across the room. With every gaze fixed on her, she felt small, yet she knew she had to be strong. Taking a deep breath, she began. "I want to tell you about Maplewood, about this bakery." She gestured around, her voice trembling yet fierce. "This isn't just flour and sugar. It's memories. It's the smell of fresh bread on a Sunday morning, the laughter of children at birthday parties, and the solace of warm coffee during hard times." A ripple of soft gasps moved through the crowd. She noticed Sarah watching her, eyes wide and shining with pride. Ruth's words began to flow, carrying the weight of countless stories, each one pulling at her heartstrings. "The bakery has been a place where we've shared our joys and our sorrows. It symbolizes our community, strong, united, and unyielding. This important part of our lives can't just be shoved aside for a corporation looking to profit." Her voice rose, finding strength with every word as Ruth spoke. The room felt charged. Heads nodded and murmurs of agreement buzzed like electricity in the air. She saw Dan's look of encouragement, Sarah's eyes sparkling with hope, and the faces of her neighbors morph into expressions of solidarity. But just as she thought they were winning hearts, a council member leaned forward, skepticism etched on his face. "We appreciate your sentiments, Mrs. Collins, but this is business," he replied flatly. "Numbers don't lie." Ruth's heart sank. She had poured herself into her words, and yet it felt like it wasn't enough. Anxiety pierced through her gains. Will love for a community outweigh financial necessity? She wondered. As she stood, searching the faces around her for support, she felt a flicker of desperation rise within her. She wasn't ready to give up, but she couldn't ignore the sinking fear gripping her heart. How much could they fight against a force larger than themselves? Then from the back someone stood up. The sound of a chair scraping against the floor echoed in the silence. It was Mrs. Hargrove. "Ruth, you're right. This is more than just numbers," she called out, her voice strong and unwavering. Ruth's breath hitched, a surge of hope washing over her. More voices joined in, rallying behind them. The crowd started to rise, united by a common cause. But just as hope filled the atmosphere, the door swung open and in walked an imposing figure in a sharp suit. Ruth felt the dread wash over the gathering like a shadow. What could this mean for Maplewood? Would their voices be enough against the storm that loomed just outside? Ruth's heart thudded loud in her chest, drowning out the gasps of the crowd. Who was this newcomer? The council members paused, eyes darting towards the imposing figure. He exuded authority, like a storm cloud hovering over their small sun-kissed town. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice smooth but cold, "I'm here on behalf of North Corp, And I assure you we have significant plans for this area. Ruth felt the tension snap like a brittle twig. She leaned forward, barely breathing. The murmuring crowd silenced, their expressions shifting from hope to confusion, and then to fear. North Corp was a giant, known for swallowing small businesses whole. Why do you need to destroy what we've built? A voice from the back shouted. It was Mr. Jenkins, a longtime customer and neighbor. Ruth felt a swell of gratitude for him, but she knew anger wouldn't be enough. We're not destroying. We're improving, the man in the suit replied, unbothered. We bring opportunities, jobs, and modernization to Maplewood. Think big, think expansion. Think small. Ruth found herself shouting, her voice cutting through the tension. Her heart raced as all eyes shifted back to her. The bakery is not just a business. It's a home. It's where people feel connected. The crowd stared, and even the council members seemed taken aback. It was no longer about numbers versus sentiment. It was about life and community. Ruth, Dan murmured, filled with urgency, you have to tell them more. She took a deep breath, fueled by adrenaline. This bakery watched first birthdays and celebrated anniversaries. It's where my husband proposed, where we all gathered when times were tough. It's woven into the fabric of this town, she insisted, looking around at the faces she knew so well. If we let it go, we let go of part of ourselves. The man in the suit smirked, clearly amused. Sentimentality doesn't pay the bills. But Ruth pressed on, her voice shaking yet resolute. What about the people who work here? What about the kids who come in after school for cookies? You're talking about numbers, but behind each number is a story. That matters. As she spoke, others in the crowd started to rise alongside her. You don't want to lose the heart of Maplewood. Someone else echoed. Ruth turned, heart swelling. Yes, this was the moment. More voices transformed the atmosphere into something electric. The council members seemed cut off from reality, surprised, perhaps intimidated by the fervor of their community. But just as they found their rhythm, the man in the suit raised a finger, calling for silence. This is all very touching. Yet, whether you realize it or not, this is the 21st century. Traditions must adapt to survive. With that, he pulled out a proposal, a slick pamphlet, filled with glossy images of culinary chains and franchise expansions. The crowd shuddered. Ruth felt disoriented, a whirlwind of anger and despair crashing against her. What does that even mean for us? A voice croaked from the group. Ruth could see the fear in their eyes, the realization that they could lose everything overnight. She had to focus before she could speak again, though the door creaked open wider. In walked a familiar face, Tom, the retired mayor, who had seemed like a ghost after stepping down. He framed the doorway, his gray mustache twitching with determination. Ruth, he called out as he stepped forward. You're right. It's time we unite. We don't just want our bakery. We want our town. The spirit of Maplewood cannot be bought or sold, that was it. The spark ignited a fire in the room as he joined Ruth and the others. Together they stood united, a wall against the looming threat. Ruth watched as encouragement spread like wildfire, neighbors joining hands and voices, pride swelling in their chests. But the man stood unflinching, his eyes reflecting only a cold calculation. Ruth's hope danced precariously, but she was not ready to back down. Together she whispered to her neighbors, we can fight this. As they gathered their strength, that fierce determination mingled with an unyielding fear. What if their unity, their stories weren't enough? What if the storm proved too great? The confrontation had just begun, and the real question loomed overhead: would they be stronger together than the storm that threatened to wash away their dreams? Ruth's heart cranked up its rhythm as she absorbed the atmosphere surrounding her. This was not just a battleground for her bakery. It felt like the pulse of Maplewood itself. While the man in the suit stood poised, almost arrogant, the crowd surged with a collective energy she hadn't felt in a long time. Thomas, right, someone chimed in from the front. We can't let them take away what makes us us. Ruth's voice rose up, fueled by the strength of her friends and neighbors. We want to be a part of the future, but not at the cost of our past. The man, seemingly irritated, flipped through the proposal, as if searching for something to counter their rallying cry. You're all being short-sighted. This isn't just about you, it's about progress. The world is moving forward. Why cling to the past? A murmur spread through the crowd, their faith wavering just a bit under the weight of his words. They were afraid of losing what was familiar, yet terrified of being left behind. Ruth could feel that fear surfacing, a tidal wave threatening to crash over the wave of determination they had built. Progress doesn't mean bulldozing the past, Ruth shouted, her heart racing. What good is a new business if it leaves a gaping hole in our community? You're trying to erase our memories. She could see their eyes looking back at her, filled with the shared history of Maplewood, but the man's dismissive gaze kept cutting through their hope. Before she could gather her thoughts again, a younger voice piped up. Why can't we have both? We deserve a new future without losing our roots. With that, the crowd reacted as if they'd been given permission to speak up, a chorus of encouragement echoing around the room. Each voice layered on top of the last, combining their fears and aspirations into a powerful anthem. Save the bakery! Save Maplewood! They cheered. The man in the suit shifted uncomfortably, his arrogant mask slipping just a tad. Ruth seized the moment. Here we are. She felt the spark of rebellion rush through her. We will fight for this town. We will organize and have meetings, write letters, make our voices heard. Let us do it. A voice from the back roared, and cheers erupted again. But the storm cloud wasn't finished. And what will that accomplish? He spat, defiance lacing his tone. Do you think your letters will stop progress? Do you think the world will adjust its plans just because you nostalgically cling to a bakery? His words sliced through Ruth, and tension crackled in the air. But she wouldn't let it break her spirit. This isn't just about nostalgia. It's about our future, built on the foundation of community for our children to know and love what we've created. The retired mayor stepped forward again, his voice booming with authority. Every story begins with a foundation. What we build today will determine what our children inherit tomorrow. We refuse to be steamrolled by corporate interests. In that moment, they became something more than just a crowd. They transformed into a movement. Ruth caught Dan's eye, and in that split second of connection, she knew they had ignited something special. Yet, just as exhilaration swelled, doubt still lingered. Could they really turn the tide against such a massive corporation? Suddenly, the doors swung open again. A mysterious figure entered, silhouetted against the light. More murmurs rippled through the crowd. Ruth squinted, searching for familiarity, her unease mixing with intrigue. Who was that? Someone whispered, and as the figure stepped forward, Ruth felt her pulse quicken again. It was a person she never expected to see. Someone whose presence could change everything. What did they want? More importantly, did they come to help or hurt? The stakes just got higher, and the battle for Maplewood had only just begun. As the figure stepped fully into the light, Ruth's breath caught in her throat. It was Martha, her childhood best friend, someone she hadn't seen in over a decade. Martha had left Maplewood right after high school, chasing dreams in the bustling city far away. Ruth remembered their long talks in the back of the bakery, sipping soda and dreaming about the future. But now, here Martha was drawn back to the town they'd grown up in, just as it hung in the balance. Ruth's heart raced, both with hope and anxiety. What had brought her back? And why now of all times? Martha! Ruth called, a mix of disbelief and joy swelling within her. The crowd turned, some with faces of recognition, others confused. The air shifted, charged with a new energy. Martha met her gaze, her own eyes sparkling yet heavy with emotion. She walked toward the front, gauging the crowd as she approached. Ruth! It's been so long, she said, her voice breaking slightly. The tension in the room felt different now, like a budding flower pushing through tough soil. We need your help, Ruth said without hesitation, her heart pounding with urgency. This bakery, this town, it's all at stake. They're trying to bulldoze it for some big project. Martha's face fell for a brief moment, realizing the gravity of the situation. I wouldn't have come back if I didn't think I could do something, she replied, her determination rising. I've seen what happens in larger cities. We can't let them strip Maplewood of its soul. The crowd surged with renewed enthusiasm. Tom, standing closer now, chimed in, if we stand together, there's nothing we can't accomplish. You know who they are, Martha. You came back for a reason. Ruth noticed a flicker of recognition pass between Martha and the man in the suit. They shared an unnerving look that sent chills down Ruth's spine. You know him? She whispered urgently, nudging her friend. Martha shook her head, her brow furrowed. Not personally, but the firm he represents is notorious. They don't just take things down. They erase them. Once they're gone, you never get them back. We need a solid plan, she said, her voice firm. Then let us make one, Ruth declared, emboldened by Martha's presence. We can rally, organize, find a way to showcase how important our community is. We need people to stand with us, show them what Maplewood means. Are you ready to fight? Martha asked, locking eyes with the crowd. A unified roar filled the air in response. Yes. As cheers erupted once more, Ruth felt a sense of camaraderie swell around her. This was their moment. But beneath the excitement, a new fear emerged. What if they weren't enough? With determination spreading like wildfire, they set to work, sharing ideas and rallying support. Ruth felt the weight of the world slide off her shoulders, but doubt lingered in the corner of her mind. Could they really confront a corporation? The man in the suit stood silently at the edge, his expression grim, more calculating than before. Ruth felt his gaze heavy on her, stirring unease within her. He seemed to be regrouping, plotting his next move. As the first meeting commenced, Martha took charge, presenting ideas and strategies that breathed life into the movement. Ruth's heart surged with admiration for her friend, for the fire she brought back to Maplewood. In that moment, she felt they had unstoppable momentum. But just as plans began to solidify, the door swung open once again, and another figure entered. This time it was Alan, the town's original developer, who once held all the power in Maplewood, a man with connections that could easily sway things in the Crown's favor. Wait a minute, he said, surveying the room. What's this gathering about? Ruth felt a sudden chill as the new twist emerged, knowing they were on the edge of something monumental. Would Alan stand with them or against them? The battle lines were being drawn, and the fight for Maplewood had only just begun. Ruth stood at the front of the town hall, heart pounding. The energy in the room shifted like a tide, both fear and hope swirling around. Alan was a formidable figure. The room quieted, anticipation buzzing, waiting for his response. We're trying to save the bakery, Ruth said, her voice steadying against the uncertainty. It's not about just flour and sugar. It's about our community, our past and our future. Alan's steely eyes darted around, weighing the emotions on each face. And you think a mere bakery can stop progress? Can it bring jobs and growth to Maplewood? His words hung heavy, but within that weight, Ruth felt a flicker of determination. It's not just a bakery. It's a lifeline for many here. A place for families to gather to heal. Maplewood needs heart as much as it needs jobs. Martha stepped forward, her presence commanding. You know the people here, Alan. How many of them have you personally connected with? This isn't about corporate interests. This is their home. The crowd murmured, recalling their connections with Alan, once their hopeful developer. But now his back seemed turned. Ruth sensed the shifting tides. This was the moment. Alan squinted, taking a deep breath. You think nostalgia alone can win in a battle against corporation-backed innovation? Ruth stepped closer, desperation bubbling under her resolve. It's not nostalgia. It's about what we've built together. Partnerships, friendships, memories. Maplewood was built on community. Would it thrive under a soulless entity like North Corp? More murmurs rippled through the crowd, uncertainty creeping in. Then it hit Ruth like a wave. Remember the bake-off? The laughter? We rallied together for each other. The spirit of our community is our strength. Ruth's voice soared, passionate and fierce. Your legacy can either be a shiny new facade or a town steeped in love and connection. If this bakery goes, we lose far more than just pastries. Alan hesitated, his brows furrowing as he surveyed the faces of childhood friends and neighbors. He opened his mouth as if to protest but faltered, realizing the weight of the room as shared history. Ruth, Alan finally said quietly, you know the world is changing. But maybe you're right. Maybe this isn't the way everyone wants Maplewood to grow. Ruth's heart raced, hope surging anew. Then help us. Help us show that there's more to build on here than just profit margins. Suddenly a roar erupted from the crowd, fists pumping in the air. Save the bakery. Save Maplewood. Their voices, once tentative, now felt like thunder, each cheer igniting the ember of determination within her. Alan nodded slowly, the former power he wielded no longer holding sway over his heart. All right, he said, still cautious but finally shifting. Let us work together. For the town. We'll fight to keep North Corp at bay, but you need to show them what Maplewood really stands for. And that will take everything you've got. The air felt electric with newfound resolve. Martha grinned, arms raised high in victory amongst the crowd, while Ruth's heart soared. They might just have the chance to reclaim their town, to stand united not just for the bakery, but for the very spirit of Maplewood itself. As the meeting began to break apart, the rush of energy mingled with relief. People gathered in groups, filled with enthusiasm, whispering plans and ideas. Ruth caught Sarah's eye across the room. She beamed back, filled with admiration for her mother, for their community's strength. That evening the bakery buzzed with activity, laughter spilling into the streets. Ruth guided her helpers as they prepared for the upcoming fundraiser. Now more than a bake-off, it would be the heartbeat of their campaign, the beginning of community resurgence. As they worked late into the night, Sarah turned to her mother. Mom, do you think we can really do this? Absolutely, Ruth replied, her heart full. This isn't just about cakes. It's about love, unity, and a future we can all hold on to. Each pie that went into the oven was a story, a reminder of the past and a signal of renewal. And when the fundraiser hit the town square, the warm lights twinkled like stars through the heart of Maplewood. People came together, the townsfolk, the children, old friends and new, to share their recipes, laughter, and hopes for what could be. As Ruth served pie after pie, she noticed the spark in the townspeople's eyes. It was a revival. Through the night, stories were shared, tears shed, and joy embraced like family. Ruth felt the strength of her community nurturing her soul. In that moment, all that doubt faded away. Their love was enough to overcome any storm as darkness cloaked the skies. Ruth stood on the steps of the bakery, watching the laughter swirl around her. Together we can conquer anything, she whispered, a radiant smile lighting her face. And in Maplewood, as the echoes of laughter danced like the warm summer breeze, they found a new chapter and built a legacy stronger than they ever imagined. Don't let this ending be the end. Subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support our amazing journey. Comment your reactions and feelings about this incredible transformation. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to be inspired by this community triumph. You need to support us now, so don't wait not even one more second.